Good morning, and welcome to a slightly different session from us. Obviously, we're still going to be talking about social media, but today we are going to be deep diving into one topic that always appears in our regular monthly updates, and that is the topic of AI. We did promise in the narrative for this event that yes, it is another AI social media session, but we can assure you this is not about how to write a great prompt. We're not going to give you a list of prompts or demo of prompts. What we wanted to do was really bring this topic to life with some examples. And we'll do intros in a second as people are joining. But Andy and I, we both spend as much time as we can, I think, scouring the internet, reading news articles, coming across case studies. So this was a really nice opportunity for us to kind of bring those thoughts together as well. If you haven't met us before, we have been doing a joint monthly event now for nearly 4 years. So every month you will find us both on LinkedIn live doing a roundup of social media updates, looking at data, trends and insights, different features. I will share this is completely unrehearsed. We do work on the slide decks together, but we don't exchange what our thoughts are going to be or what our narrative is on this. So it's very much a discussion, which we would love you to join in. There is a chat feature either below or to the side of your screen, depending on how you're looking. So please do chat along with us. I will keep an eye on that while we're going. So I'm a social media consultant, have been working in this area for a number of years now. I don't really like to say how many because things change all the time and I can't remember. But many years. I've been a marketer for over 20 years. It didn't exist when I first studied, but came into the arsenal probably 2007, 2008 as I went client side. And now I have an amazing mix running my own business of working directly with organizations, supporting them with their marketing and social media specifically, and also doing a fair amount of teaching, training, delivery on these topics as well. I'll do a small plug because both Andy and I have written books. I won an award for my latest book last
Did
week.
you?
Yes, I won
Oh,
the
congrats,
national.
didn't know that.
Thanks. It was on my LinkedIn. It was a National Indie Excellence Award. So that was the book that was out in October. I've got another one out in September this year. And really, that is taking all the lived experience and working with clients and doing training as well to put those thoughts into a book. And there's a small amount of AI in there, but it's always changing. So that's why we are doing a live event today.
Wonderful. I love it. And I put the QR code if you want to follow either of us to our LinkedIns anyway. So I'm Andy. For my sins, I've spent most of my working life in social, from building social media software products. So come at this from more of a technology standpoint and having to work very closely with all the social networks in building technologies that work with them. So we built a business called Content Cal from 2016 till 2021, where we were acquired by Adobe. Now I work at Adobe on the product, working on some very interesting AI orientated stuff. So I'll bring that to the fore. And yes, I wrote a book too. And mine's a lot more around social media for brand and business growth. Really good if you're a founder or work in a startup, how you can drive growth through social media ultimately. Right, that's enough about us. So should we get into let's get straight into it, Luann.
Yeah, so we're going to cover a few things today. As I said, this is not about prompts. We are going to cover some of the considerations that you need to think about when you're using AI. We have got lots of examples that we've uncovered for you and talking about tools and features as well. And yes, before anyone asks, some people aren't seeing the slides, but we can see the slides and I think others aren't. And if you go to the next screen, we'll leave that on for a little bit. We will share the slides with you. If you can't grab them now, I will pop the link in the event chat afterwards. And if you can't find them anywhere, then do contact us. And we are very happy to share these slides with you as well. So the considerations, is that where we're going to start?
That's where we'll start, I think.
We always start with the considerations.
Let's get the negative stuff out of the way with.
Yeah.
Let's kind of root ourselves in reality, and then we can talk about some of the more fun stuff, I think.
Oh, actually, some data. Let's talk about what we're using at the moment. And there's so much data out there. Whenever we put slide decks together, of course we go looking for some data to help us support our argument. Marketers are using AI. I don't think there's a day where you can scroll through a newsfeed anymore without having an AI update or an AI story or someone sharing what they're doing in AI. There is no doubt that it is now part of our armory. And how are people using it? This data from eMarketer is showing us that it is mainly being used right now to help brainstorm, create and edit content. At the top of this chart is about text. Then it's about kind of creating things from scratch, using AI tools to develop new ideas, editing images, etc. I know we're in slightly different worlds, Andy. How are you using AI tools on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think we'll probably get into that a little bit
Yeah.
later on, but more of like assisting me through workflows rather than creating things from scratch. But I think we'll dive into some of that later on. But I think the thing that jumps out at me from this slide is that edit and refine text. As much of this is, or a lot of it is very copy based. Like edit text, produce ads text from scratch, or produce customer support text, or revise and rewrite text. And it's like, it's kind of like where we've started, where ChatGPT has kind of rooted us in like, oh, AI is kind of like text first. And yeah, it's helpful for sure. And no doubt that's a use case for it. But honestly, we need to be thinking much, much more broadly as marketers, because quite frankly, AI disrupts our industry probably more than any other industry I can think of.
Yeah.
And we really need to be thinking quite carefully about how we use AI and how we leverage its potential properly. I don't want to sound all kind of like doom mongering.
Yeah.
It's not really. We have an incredible opportunity, but we need to make sure that we take control of that opportunity. There's a lot of things that are possible now with AI, which we're going to hopefully cover just a small platter of those today. But we just need to be thinking broader is my main kind of call to action here, my call to arms, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, I use ChatGPT. I've got it open most of the time because I think for me, it's almost like it's a quick win. And sometimes if you're staring at a blank sheet, it can get you started, and then you put something in and then you sigh and you re-edit it and you go from there. But kind of editing something always feels less daunting and overwhelming than a blank sheet of paper.
Definitely.
But
Yeah,
I think
don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like people shouldn't use ChatGPT. It's just one tool of many, many. So so looking at this, it makes me think we're not thinking as broadly as we possibly could be. But then again, looking at the title of this, that was data from nearly a year ago now. So likely and hopefully marketers have changed their POVs a little bit. Leads quite nicely onto this, doesn't it? Love to understand from the chat what tools people are using. And whilst we'll touch on a couple of tools today, we're not going to go super deep into it. We're more speaking about use cases and examples today. But we all love a tool that's going to help us. So I'd love to see what you're using in chat. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I think my answer to this question is I've almost got to the stage of AI where it's almost like, as I said, you see all these lists and these posts every day of like, have you tried this one? Have you tried this one? And I've got to the point of like, I can't keep trying all these ones out. I'll wait until my workflow or productivity or a need arises, and then I'll go and find a tool to support it. Rather than, there's directories, there's lists, but it's always great to see what other people are using, because sometimes you can have a conversation, when we Opus Clip, for example, you mentioned on the session we did about AI in November, and it's like, it's great to know what other people are using. Adobe Generative AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, coming through. So yeah, do share what you're using. Again, feels quite copy focused at the moment.
Interesting. That's all right. Now,
as you said,
consideration bit. So now we know there's definitely a lot more opportunity out there. And obviously, I think your point actually a second ago, Luann, I want to double click on that because that's worthwhile, like a bit of pause and reflection, because it's so easy to use tools for tools' sake. And especially, well, I don't know if it speaks more about the content in my feed and type of things I engage with on social media. It's all like the top 10 tools for this or the tools you must try. And like, it's overwhelming. how many different, and I'm a social media technology guy, and it's just overwhelming. So it's really important to think about like use case first, to your point, Luann. So absolutely love that take. Anyway, sorry, back over to you.
Yeah, we said, we'll start with the considerations, because as much as it is AI, they are great tools. We've talked about productivity and workflows. We're going to go into a bit more creative inspiration in a minute, but there are things that we need to consider. And we've also heard stories around, AI is going to replace our jobs. And then there's an alternative around, no, people with an AI skill set may replace your jobs. And there's news stories around, AI as a skill that recruiters are looking for right now. So I think we do need to consider that using these AI tools and features is a skill. And, in 20 years of marketing, as I said, social media didn't exist when I first studied it. We continually need to evolve and add to our skill set. That's one of the things I think I love about marketing, but also one of the challenges of just how fast it keeps changing, and our skill set and our knowledge has to change along with it. We'll address the middle one, because copyright is one of the issues. We have probably all heard news stories around, when you input prompts, information, data into these AI tools, yes, they are training themselves on it, they are using it. My takeaway on this, I'm not a legal copyright expert, is if I'm doing prompts or using the tools, I don't put client names in, I don't put my own name in there, I don't put brand names in there, I kind of anonymize it as much as I can. And I do know, going back to kind of the author experience, that when I uploaded my book to Amazon to launch it, there was a tick box as to, have you used AI in this? I've got contracts coming through with clients and projects right now that talk about use of AI. So understand there is a copyright issue around this. If you haven't got an AI policy as a working document within your organization at the moment, I would highly recommend that you do consider having one and have this conversation with your colleagues as well.
I find the copyright thing absolutely fascinating, and it's something that I'm more of an observer, because I'm not smart enough to work on this directly. More of an observer as to what's happening at Adobe, and Adobe have done incredible things related to maintaining like the artist's integrity with the Adobe model that's called Firefly. We're going to talk about that more in the next slide, actually. But to me, it's strange that not as many people are talking about this as I thought they would be. It feels like the bit in the corner that we just, the elephant in the room, if you will, that we kind of want to forget and not think about that is there.
Yeah.
Because this will cause absolute chaos in future, because the amount of content being generated that's essentially used and trained off non-licensed content is pretty bad. You would have seen this all happened at OpenAI with how they're training their Sora model basically on YouTube videos. And it's like, we're in some really dodgy territory, because a lot of these AI companies, because it's a race for training data, and most of that data that's used to train these models are not copyright. Well, and they are not publicly available. So, and it's a really important point that we just really need to consider. And to be honest, it's stopped a lot of organizations harnessing AI properly for fear of that. So, yeah. Anyway, again, don't mean to doom monger, but there's, that's only really when AI is used to create content from scratch. So it's just worthwhile bearing that in mind. And to your point about skill set, Luann, it's like, it's in our skill set to let AI give us the starting points to unleash our creative imagination, and then for us to level it up as like the curators of that content. So that's where the human touch is the thing that's going to keep you on the right side of that. And also just bearing in mind that, something you've generated from Midjourney, for example, looks great. Are you really sure it's original?
Yeah, you've got to, anyone that has been using tools such as ChatGPT knows that they need to go and check sources, citations, things like that. And then we said we wouldn't talk about prompts, but the last point on this slide about considerations, I wanted to raise the topic of bias, and that is around diversity, inclusion, accessibility as well. When my experience of using these tools is that it is not their default to on this topic. They are not experts in this topic. Anyone that has tried to use it for image generation, for example, or even, you know, draw me a picture of someone that works in this profession may stereotype by gender typically as well. And there's an example coming up where, you know, AI has generated something and it looks great, but my experience is it is not great on accessibility. My word, does ChatGPT love an emoji all over the place, a different emoji for any bullet point. And actually, I did a training session in-house for someone during Learning at Work Week and did a whole topic around neurodiversity, you know, accessible content. And I did a prompt into ChatGPT saying, I'm delivering a session on this topic. Please write me a social media post. And it, you know, broke all the accessibility guidelines in terms of emojis. And then I did a recording of it on a screen reader and you could see how it missed things out. So this is really important area. So be aware of bias coming through in your outputs and that you will need to edit it, or be really focused in your prompts in the beginning to make sure that your content is as diverse, inclusive, accessible, all those good things.
I think the TLDR across all of these three considerations is really just use AI to raise the bar, right, and not lower it, because it's now so easy to put out okay work faster. No doubt, no drama with that at all. And that's what a lot of, like, you know, see a lot of this type of content on social media. Get it done quickly, hack this, and it's like we need to use AI to raise the bar again. Like we're going to use it to like ignite our creativity, to be our workflow partner, all the stuff that you know. But we are in curatorial control. We are the curators of whatever we are building or creating, etc. Because that's why we're marketers, right? We understand the art and science of creativity. So yeah, that's just my kind of call to arms again on that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this one quickly, because this really does start like what I've been talking about related to copyright, etc. Because this is a burgeoning space. We're all very immature related to this, and I am no legal counsel, so I have no clue, if I'm being completely honest. But it's fascinating to see how this is going to unfold over the next year plus, because we're really at the start of this journey. So what Adobe are doing, amongst with a whole bunch of other big tech companies too, is part of this content authenticity initiative. This is essentially metadata baked into images, which give it its content credentials that you can see here. So anything that's being created with AI, it's essentially stamped in the metadata of the image. So that's this is a non-profit, this is an organization of tech companies coming together to try and help people understand the provenance of content, so that we're not misled by things that are clearly AI generated. Well, not clearly AI generated, that are AI generated, but don't appear to be so. So this is going to be a really important burgeoning thing to understand moving forward. And we'll talk about some of the implications of this later on, but definitely worthwhile paying a bit of attention to this, because we're going to see much more requirements around this, and no doubt that we're going to see some regulation step in at some point in the future related to the authenticity of content too. So fascinating space. So with that, sorry, Joanne, carry on.
No, someone's just asked, will we share the video? Yes, it's recording. It will be in this place as soon as it's finished, and we will share the slides as well. So yeah, if you haven't watched us before, we do run through things quite fast.
Definitely do. And I think with that, that's probably enough of like rooting us in some kind of reality here, and hopefully not being kind of too negative throughout the course of this. But it's always worthwhile just grounding ourselves in reality first, and then now let's talk about some of the fun and the possibilities and how companies are leveraging it right now. So Luann, do you want to talk through this one first, and I'll go through the next one?
Okay, you're switching them around, but I can do this one.
I can do this one too.
You do this one.
You know me, I'll always go off.
Yeah, because I want to do the crisps and the food.
I love that. That'll make sense in a minute.
Yeah.
Cool. I think this is probably a very easy use case to understand here, which is personalization at scale. So this is Woucher running their Facebook ads. They were seeing decreasing results in their ads, turned it over to AI to essentially do both copywriting and personalization of this. and naturally saw much higher results. Now, Luann, you just made a point about emojis. You want to call this point
Yeah.
out here?
So absolutely calling this out. This is exactly what AI kind of does in terms of outputs. It puts emojis in there. So if you were to ever try a screen reader, and I would recommend that everyone does try a screen reader, and even if you don't have a visual impairment or a hearing impairment, to anything that makes it more helpful for some people helps other people as well, because particularly if emojis are not your first language, you're almost looking at this going, that's a wave, oh, see, and I can't even see quite what that, that's a money note. Does anyone even see those anymore, in terms of savings? So these emojis are breaking up the text, and they don't work well for screen readers.
It's a really good call out. So whilst this is not perfect, and we want to give our own honest narrative across each example, what this depressingly does show is that AI generated copy outperforms human generated copy. But it's actually a really important note to say this is AI edited copy rather than necessarily generated, because it's all about the human having the concept behind this. The creative is the same in both instances. The images, this cut off in the screenshot I've put in here, but the images are essentially the same. But it's really interesting to see, the real impact that changing the copy and allowing AI to test multiple different variations. They did this manually. They didn't use any form of like AI Facebook ad tool or anything like that. That's just literally Chat GPT, getting AI to rewrite the copy as you see here, and then that results in 31% drop in cost per lead and 9 out of 10 relevant scores. For anyone that runs social ads, you'll know we can all aspire to those types of relevant scores, because it means we're going to drive lower cost per clicks here. So really powerful way of just using AI just to simply split test Facebook ads. And to be honest, this is where ad copy, and unsurprisingly, you see 86% of marketers going after like editing and refined copy, particularly if you're doing anything related to like Facebook ads, Insta ads, etc. Those small tweaks related to the copy clearly can have large impact.
So this is the food ones.
Fun one.
And this is a great example. So we talked about image generation earlier, and someone said, oh, they don't particularly like AI generated images. But this was an agency, Rethink Ideas, who worked with Heinz. They were using AI tools, DALL-E, to input, about ketchup and see what came up. And the results were that basically everything that they put in as prompts related to ketchup came up with pictures of bottles. So they ended up creating an entire UGC, user-generated content campaign, by asking consumers to share their own AI prompts for ketchup-based imagery. And this is just a few of the ones that came up. So UGC content works really well on social media as well. Get your audience involved, get them creating, get them involved. So I think this was a really nice AI-generated example of that. And of course, it worked. It got results for them, an increase in audience engagement, and a first of its kind campaign. No doubt we will start seeing lots more campaigns like this. It is about being original and authentic, but yeah, UGC, audience engagement, get people to try it. And just some of those examples, when you get to look at the slide deck again afterwards, they're just really good fun.
Yeah, and I like the fact they've used AI tools that we all know, and we all know like it's hard to correlate how like text to image works for most businesses, right? Because like why do you really want to create something from scratch that doesn't include your product anyway? Like what they've used here is they've kind of turned it on its head really, and used DALL-E as the enabler for this. And I think that's just a really smart use of AI, and a way that we've not typically been thinking about it. We're usually thinking about it for, oh, how can we use these tools for us to create, rather than flipping it around to allow this as a tool for our users to create on-brand content for us. So a very smart move. This is all about how we can use AI, and possibly one of the most powerful ways that we can use AI, which truly allows us to unlock insights that we never could have done before unless you had data scientists on a team. So this is all through deep social listening. That makes it sound like it's unachievable for others, but it's really not. So this is about using a social media listening tool, of which I think it was mention.com in this instance, listening on social media for certain trends that correlate Ben and Jerry's and something else. And what AI came back and said that there's a lot of talk about ice cream for breakfast, right? So rather than just thinking about what people are saying about Ben and Jerry's as a brand, they started to ask queries of the AI to say, where else is ice cream mentioned and what are the other associations of ice cream? And that again is where AI is just incredibly powerful. When you start to try and look for associations in the data and pattern match, which a typical human being wouldn't have that amount of time to try and find where those patterns are across all of those tens of thousands of data points. So it turns out ice cream for breakfast is a thing. So that then turns out into a whole new product for Ben and Jerry's of these frozen flakes and a whole bunch of a new cereal flavored ice creams too. So it's a couple of ways of looking at it, and ended up being like a nice viral campaign. I don't know if it ended up becoming a top selling product, but it's a fantastic way of like having that opportunity to listen to what the broader audience is saying, not just your customers, but what's the sentiment around ice cream? What are the associations, and how can we tie that together to both inform our product and content strategy? Just, yeah, very smart.
Love that, ice cream for breakfast.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah. And here's another one.
Here's
Put
your
in the
crisp,
chat.
Joanne.
Yeah, put in the chat. Are you crisp in or crisp out? I love this one because it kind of a bit nostalgia as well, I guess, because this is PepsiCo using AI because they'd identified that they were losing market share for Walker's crisps. So again, a bit of a social listening exercise. They used AI. They actually developed their own proprietary AI tool to do this, to see how could they regain market share, what were the issues, and they wanted to change the conversation to be about lunch. And do you put your crisps in your sandwich or outside your sandwich? And there's a really cool little YouTube video in here as well. So we've got crisp in and crisp out. I'll share. I'm crisp in, but actually I have that thing where I can't stand hearing other people eat crisps. So I'm not sure how I would feel about this in a meeting or a social situation. But just a really nice, simple campaign through listening and using AI tools, as you said, to kind of support that.
Yeah, and it's that data support that's a really important one. And they went big on this campaign. They went everywhere. This is TV, this is social, this is multi-channel.
Yeah. And it was all about mental availability, which is something I know in your book, Andy, and your talks and things that you do. You talk a lot about this mental availability and share of voice, because ultimately B2B, B2C product like this, what we're trying to do is be front of mind when someone is looking for our product or service. So we talk a lot about metrics and reach and impressions and things like that. But I think we're both big advocates of mental availability, share of voice, being present and front of mind for when the time's right.
Definitely agree. I think this is one that we could all understand, and to be honest with you, I'm still a little bit mixed on this. There's still a part of this approach to video that doesn't sit that well with me. Must be maybe because I'm getting old or don't like change. Who knows? Because to explain the rationale behind this, so this company called SimCorp, the way that they've typically grown is have their consultants and their advisors do face-to-camera video. They went big on employee advocacy, and they always have done. It's been one of their main growth levers. But of course, having your employees, your consultants that are already in-demand individuals that work within an organization. I'm sure anyone that's tried to ignite an employee advocacy program in your own business, you'll know it's hard to get your subject matter experts to find the time to do social content. They knew how important it was. They wanted them to do these face-to-camera videos. These are all like customer-facing things. So the way of scaling it is essentially scale it with AI orientated avatars and the talk-throughs. The video background behind it. So unsurprisingly, video production was like 2 days, but now it's down to 2 hours, which essentially just requires the refinement of the script and the narrative, of which then that's much more manageable for those subject matter experts within the business to actually do that. And then they can also increase the quantity of output too, which, as we know, we always have the the challenge where you're like, oh, is it quality or quantity? What matters more? And the fact is, typically both. If you can scale good quality content, then both quantity and quality will win. So they can ensure that they can scale the right quality of content, not compromising on it, and scale it further with more employees' voices here, just through these AI avatars. Now, it still makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable because it's not a real person on camera. So that, I don't think, even though we're sharing these case studies, I don't think all of them we need to necessarily get behind. But I wanted to show this as a real life example that actually unlocks something that I know everyone wants to do. They want to be able to scale their employees' voices. It's now getting pretty possible now to take this to the next level, because those SimCorp avatars in this example, they're AI avatars, so not the actual person. But we're probably only a few months away from it being realistically, like, you and I, Luann, could easily do a video with our own voices and mannerism, with us just writing a script. So am I okay with that? In some ways not. So what's your take anyway?
I think it's the word authenticity that underlies this, isn't it? And, yes, there is a real challenge in getting, you and I do videos every month. It doesn't mean that we particularly enjoy it or love doing it, but we do it because we know it works and we do enjoy it afterwards. But, I appreciate it's not easy. And it's certainly not easy to get colleagues within organizations to do this as well. I do kind of like the concept and that it can be used, but I'm wondering whether it's almost, if I was to do it, I'd want it to almost like be really obvious that it was an avatar rather than trying to imitate a human. And is it real or is it not? That would be my kind of mental challenge with it, of like, I don't want it to be too real that people don't really know whether it's AI or a real person. I think if you could create a character or something that guides you through a learning program or a course, I'd probably be okay with it. But to try and imitate a human as if it was an employee, I think I would struggle with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we did well, Luann. We got through 33 minutes of this without saying authenticity. Oh, no, I did say authenticity initiative. But but you're absolutely right. I think it's like the North Star across all of this, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Sorry for the wordy slide, but back over to you.
That's right. Again, we were trying, when we were prepping this session, we were trying to look for examples across different sectors, different ideas, different use cases. So we've had image generation, we've had data, we've had social listening. Albert AI is a specific AI tool for paid media campaigns. And this example we came across was Crabtree and Evelyn, the luxury bath brand, who used Albert AI to basically support their analysis of their paid social, to support them in, how's their budget doing, testing is so important for optimization as well. So using an AI tool for data analysis, and quite a complex one, because we've got the word multivariate in there, is what Crabtree and Evelyn have used AI for. And again, in terms of results, what's the number on this one? I think it was 30% on the next slide.
Oh, yes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. In less than 2 months, there it was, 30%. In less than 2 months, using Albert AI, which, as I said, is paid, they saw a 30% increase in the return on ad spend, their ROAS. They kept their media spend flat, but using the AI tools to support their optimization, their analysis, their testing, we all want something that can help us improve return on ad spend.
Yeah, absolutely right. So it's just a small subset of these case studies, but there's so many more, and we'd always love to hear them. And if there's any from yourselves that have been using AI and seen great results, we'd love to hear them, because we'd love to showcase them in future events, because it's only really through examples does it then kind of ignite our imagination. So whether it's improving ad performance that you've seen the couple here, whether it's through deep social listening and like connecting of the dots, where you can build new product ideas and new campaign ideas, or situations where we can scale the employee advocacy through AI avatars. So I think they all coalesce around those three different themes, but typically all in the spirit of like scaling output, scaling results, etc.
Yeah.
So tool time, Luann.
Yeah. Some new features and tools. So we said we weren't going to talk about this too much. We're not listing tools here, but there are features in our monthly social media updates. If you don't catch them, actually, I think we're quite early in June. I think it's end of next week. We have been talking around how each of the social media platforms have been adding AI features over the last couple of years. And one of those, yep, it's on the next slide, is about labeling. You will hopefully have seen as you are uploading content, whether it is natively or whether it's through any third-party platforms, they are encouraging you to do this as well as a mandatory requirement. Again, this comes back to transparency and authenticity. When you're uploading images, in particular, you need to label it if it's been AI generated.
Definitely. And this is the kind of the manifestation of what we were talking about, the content authenticity initiative. So if any content had been created with Adobe products, then those credentials are baked in already. One thing to note, because this is all so new, and it's interesting what's happening. So what will happen if you're using any of the Adobe products, and it's great that it automatically will label content as AI generated, which is fine. So you see it underpinned in those content credentials on the right hand side. And rather than having to think about, oh, I need to make sure that was labeled as AI, this will do it automatically for you, which is great. So if you're creating on Adobe products. The interesting thing that's happening as well, and I'm sure this will be solved, it's more of a bug than anything, is that because those content credentials will generate if anything has been done with AI. So let's say you put a kind of generative background, you used AI to remove a background and then fill it with something else. So I don't know if you're familiar with generative fill. So any kind of AI oriented modification would then tag your image as AI generated. So you just need to be mindful of that. So either being mindful to either tick something that is yes, you AI generated it, or if something actually has just been edited with AI, that's cool. It's still original content. So just making sure you're unchecking it too. So it seems really manual, and like I said, we're so early on in this process as like a marketing industry. Naturally, I'd expect to see over the next 6 months this area of social media and the landscape around authenticity, credentials, labeling of content to really evolve and mature over the next 6 months. But
Yes,
yeah, right now, more of an
add-on. It's a bit of an add-on feature, isn't it? It's like, oh, we need to label this. Let's add a box, but it will become integrated.
Definitely.
So I said we talk about this every month in terms of AI features. I have updated a blog on my website. You can get the slides here. I've done a roundup. This is up to date as of yesterday in terms of what each social media platform is doing in terms of AI. So, for example, Meta, what they're doing in terms of labeling. There's some stuff in there around LinkedIn and how premium users are getting AI features. Quick take, I don't think they're all great, but they are there. There are some great additional AI features for recruiters within the Sales Navigator platform. TikTok are adding avatars in there, and across the platforms as well in terms of advertising, there are some supportive AI elements when you are creating ads, setting up ads, defining your target audience. So if you do want to know platform by platform what the features are, I've done a roundup for you right there.
Very kind, Luann. Yeah, it's very helpful that. I don't know if I'm going to sound too much of a Debbie Downer here, but like I struggle to see any of the social media AI features that like Instagram or Meta have shipped to be really useful right now. Some of the stuff TikTok have done is quite cool, like the ability to auto generate a script, for example, and get ideas. But in looking at Facebook, for example, like chatbots are a bit questionable. I still question the utility of those, and like the text to image capability. I'm not quite sure of the use case of generating something on Facebook in a completely AI generated thing and then posting it. I still struggle to understand what the value is there. But I don't know, maybe am I not seeing it right? I don't know.
I think there's a few, again, it feels like a bit like we said, the bolt on of the AI labeling. I think with some platforms, And I will say, you know, with LinkedIn, the AI premium feature of like, we'll help you write your about section and we'll help you write your headline. The outputs I've tested haven't been great, but are the platforms trying to integrate that? Because otherwise people are just using a tool like ChatGPT and then copying and pasting it in. So they're trying to add those features. What I will say is I was having a play last week, because I teach this as a topic, so I always have to keep up to date with it, around the AI features in terms of the LinkedIn advertising platform. And what you can do now is you can go into that and you can almost like write your brief. You can put in a website and it actually kind of started to write your brief and help you define your target audience. So we've got another example later on. So I think there are some use cases where it will help you define things. But I think, almost going back to our earlier point around the copywriting, I don't think that those outputs are great at the moment.
Yeah, interesting take. Talking about copywriting, there is many tools for this. This is one that we've been busy building, trained on social media data too. Well, social media best practices, I should say. So guiding it based on ideal caption length, hook length, the right amount of emojis, yada, yada, right kind of hashtags to use. It's all entirely free as well. So this is in Adobe Express, of which, you know, build your social media content plan, also generate social content posts. To be honest with you, I'm very rarely using the generate new caption option. The rewrite option is one that I use all the time because, as I'm sure you can probably tell from how I've spoken so far today, I'm quite verbose, and I'm also the same when I write. So being able to have something to edit me down, that is a winner for me. So yeah, do check it out. I've been really impressed. Of course, I'm heavily biased, but yeah, I've been really pleased with the results, and the feedback has been super positive so far. So that's one thing I wanted to share. And also wanted to pause on this. So I appreciate this as a kind of personal side project, but actually I did this as an experiment. So I had a book that we spoke about earlier, and I decided to just upload the whole manuscript of the book to create a GPT out of it. This is whilst GPTs were not free, and basically create like an Andy bot out of it. So ask any B2B social media question related to business growth, founding a business, yada, yada, and it should be able to answer it. It was incredibly easy to create. 5 minutes and you could create a really useful bot. And it kind of got me thinking as well, especially because chat GPTs, or GPTs, not chat GPT, GPTs in general are all free now, which is a huge move. And it kind of got me thinking that really chatbots are a new content format. And I feel like they're going to be as big as blogs were 20 or 15 years ago, where we needed to have a blog to maximize our visibility on SEO and all that good stuff. But I feel like as people's behaviors are shifting, spending more time on AI oriented platforms, chat GPT, for example, the discovery of content is coming increasingly through chatbots. And this, we're only at the start of this shift, and this is purely just a prediction based on what I'm seeing right now. So I've been wrong before, might be wrong again, but it feels like we're at that next level of content format. And not only is it a good opportunity for marketers, it's better for users too, because really, who has the time to spend 20 minutes reading a really in-depth blog, for example, let alone reading a book? So this gives an opportunity to get those answers specifically to those questions that you have in your mind. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I'm really bullish about that. And in fact, I'm sorry to carry on my soapbox on this, because now I'm starting to see businesses being built around this very use case. It's a startup that has caught my eye, and it starts to show actually when startups start to build products in and around a certain space, it starts to make you think that actually there is significant opportunity here, and maybe that narrative of chatbots being a new content format, potentially being the new blog, maybe there's validity in that. So this is a similar product that essentially allows you to create a GPT. So if you've got any form of like insight and information, any educational content that you have, you can simply upload it both either as a GPT, as you were talking about, or you can upload it in a product like Coach Fox. This is just one of a few I expect in this space. And essentially, becomes like an AI version of you. People can feel like they're chatting with you. Give it the right tone that feels like yourself too. And I think what's interesting about that, about CoachVox in particular, is that you can then gate these behind. It's quite elegantly done behind like email captures as well. So it starts to really full part of a lead generation flow. So then you can imagine, final thing I'll say on this, you can imagine these like chatbots living on a website where people wanted to understand more about your services and wanted to get some extra guidance and insight. You can allow people to ask a few questions of the chatbot, like what's the best mortgage rates, or what's the best who's the best mortgage provider right now. Answer a few of those questions, and as soon as someone says, "Oh, what's the best mortgage deal for me?" then you could just immediately flick up a kind of gated paywall, if you will, ask for the email, and then carry on that conversation. So it feels a much more intelligent way that we could be providing information on our sites for the purposes of lead generation. Sorry for a long narrative, but I'm quite excited about this as a space. Make any sense?
Absolutely. And this is, I think, where we started to kind of shift our examples, and we've just got a couple more before we finish today around, we started with using AI for text, then for inspiring campaigns, then for data analysis, UGC, things like that. There is no doubt now that AI is here, and to some extent we need to figure out how we're going to embrace it. And I'm just smiling because some of the comments that I keep picking up are like, Tom, hi Tom, said, it's a bit like when we were first allowed to start take calculators into exams, and now we use Excel and use all those formulas and things like that. Things are progressing, and we need to embrace this as we go through over time. So we're talking about tools that can help us with productivity, idea generation. It isn't a skill. CoachVox is one example. If you go to the next one, an example that I've seen, if anyone is familiar with Jeff Walker and a book called Product Launch Formula, this book has been around for many years, many versions. It's a very templated story, Jeff Walker's experience of how he does launch emails, creates products. He teaches how to do that. Over the last 12 months, 2 years, he's developed that book and his content into an AI tool. It's called launchy.ai. And if you test and trial this tool, you can literally build a business, a course, an idea, marketing campaigns around putting in, this is my target audience, these are their pain points, this is the product, this is a lead magnet, here's an email sequence. So he has redeveloped his text as a book, and now is building his business around a bespoke AI product. So if you haven't seen it, or you have seen it, give it a try. It's incredible about how fast it is.
I think this is a perfect example that really demonstrates the points that we were discussing earlier, where we were looking at that marketing chart, like what marketers are using it for. That's why I said, like, editing copy is just the tip of the iceberg. And really, as you start to look at other examples, people aren't just necessarily using marketing or AI to speed up marketing workflows, etc., which I think is all very well understood. It's about how can we use AI to enable user experiences and content, and unlock content ideas that we just never would have been able to do before. And I think that's really where a lot of the gold happens, and where we can truly like differentiate our businesses by understanding what's now possible with AI.
Yeah. And this is another one which feels perfectly from that point. If anyone has seen Score App, which is from Daniel Priestley, he was recently on Diary of a CEO podcast. He's been talking about that. He's written a number of books, Key Person of Influence, oversubscribed. He's been developing this product for a while now. It's basically a lead generator, how you can kind of build a quiz to capture data, give people scores. And he's been developing this product, and now, making it easier for his customers by adding AI in there. So if you were to say, yeah, I'd love to build a quiz, but I don't know how to write the questions and what the questions should be or what the outputs, he's added in an AI quiz builder to make it easier for his customers to build an engaging quiz. So again, it's like people running businesses, developing them all the time and seeing how AI can help. Both them as a product, but your words earlier, Andy, the user experience as well. It helps people use their product in an easier way.
Yeah, and I think I'm so with you, and it's I didn't know about this until you showed me this, and it suddenly got my
Cool.
mind racing with all the opportunity. You know,
Yeah.
imagine that you're a independent financial advisor, of which is a very competitive market, yada yada. Like this now,
So cool.
building like your financial progress score, financial health score, you could then enable that on a website. Like that would have been completely out of touch
Yeah.
as a independent financial advisor, unless you were a developer too.
Hmm.
So now you can just spin up a really easy app to sit on your site that will be like, oh, what's your financial health, and a fantastic lead funnel for you. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I just love how all of these products are spinning up to really help with those specific use cases to unlock new content opportunities. And yeah, I think this has been the thing actually. Even like creating this deck has just given me
Yeah.
a whole bunch of new ideas, which
Yeah.
I've just loved.
Yeah. So we had to stop at some point, and again, unrehearsed, but we're doing good on timing. So
Yeah.
um, thank you for all the comments that are coming in the chat. We can't answer all of them, but Andy and I will both spend time after the session looking through. There's been some great ones around, can't replace the consumer, can't replace marketers, the tools you're using. So thank you for those comments. We will take a look. But our takeaways from today are, yes, there are some quick wins: caption writing, ad copy. Our approach to this, our recommendation as such, would be review your existing workflows. How can AI tools be your collaborative partner? Do create AI guidelines. It's not going to be a definitive document. Write it once, stick it in a drawer. This is going to have to be a working, evolving document, but address those issues of copyright, authenticity. And if you are using AI, I think our advice, and what the platforms in particular are advising, is that you need to be transparent about it. Edit your output. I think there's a game now, isn't there? You can spot a social media post if it's been entirely written by ChatGPT. It does need some editing. Make it personal to you. Taste is a differentiator on this. And as I said, yeah, please do be conscious about possible bias and accessibility best practices.
And I'll close off with something that I've said numerous times, and I say it all the time. But in a sea of content, and very soon to be, probably already is, a bit of a sea of crap, it's very easy just to scale nonsense. And I think us as marketers and people that care about our craft, going back to the point you just made, Luann, about taste. Taste is something that's uniquely ours, and it's related to our brand and our business, right? What we deem as good and quality and tone and all that kind of stuff. We are the keepers of that ultimately. So there's the role that we play as marketers essentially changes a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily as much in creation as it once was. It's more in curation, which I think that's an incredibly empowering place to be. And it's really our job then to raise what that creative ceiling is through, maybe it's from those new content opportunities that we were just talking about, rather than just thinking about, oh, AI, I can get my work done quicker, just
Yeah.
bang it in ChatGPT and away we go. It's like there's an element of that component of it for sure, but then we need to use that free time to then go, what is possible now? So that's where the exciting bit happens.
Yeah. Use it to
Cool.
raise the ceiling, not lower the bar, and we've got to keep learning. So no doubt, in our monthly updates, the next one is next Thursday at 11 a.m. Just check my calendar. Do join us. We will keep talking about it, and we will probably come back to this and do another deep dive session on this topic maybe later in the year. Or if there's any other topics that we ever talk about that you'd like us to deep dive into, please do let us know. We love putting these decks together and go off and do the research for you. Get the slides, and we'll see you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any questions, feel free just to ping us directly on LinkedIn too, if we can't get round to them in the chat too. So thank you very much, everyone, for taking a bit of time. Really appreciate it.
See you later.
Bye-bye.